to meet you. You psycho fuck. Can't shake you off. Just my luck. There ain't no way I'll let you in, so you can spread your poison beneath my skin.
It's the one song where you found something of value from the beginning. For me, it was just the idea with the bass riff, and I was like, I remember showing it to you, the recording I did on my phone, and I was like, I don't know, man, it's not enough for a song. And you found something in that thing straight away. You were like, hey, this we should do. And I even remember that point where you were like, I think this is one of the strongest songs, or whatever you said, but you said like, I think this could be an album opener. And that thought hadn't crossed my mind at that point. It hadn't crossed my mind that this could be an album opener of a song. I thought, well, that's like a mid part of the album thing. But then suddenly, when we started building on it in the way that we did, it made total sense. And it's like, I wouldn't have any other song starting the album now than that one, you know?
Yeah. I remember when you showed it, as you said, you weren't really sure about it, but I think, and it was really basic. You just played it with a guitar and basically just like one chord, the whole thing, basically. But I think the drive was there, or like you could hear the thing was the drive of the song.
Exactly.
And it just and then with the bass riff that started the whole song, it just felt like this is something that can kind of, start off the whole record and like suck you in.
Exactly.
To the feeling of the album. Even though this was quite early in the process, we didn't really know what the album was gonna be like yet. But somehow it felt like it took you into the world.
Yeah, exactly. And another fun thing was that when we did the first demo version that we did together, or the first kind of thing that we tried out, we did with that cheap bass of yours. And you just added some quick, chorus plugin or whatever, just to get it emphasized a little bit. Yeah. And so that's the sound. Like, that's the sound I want to work with. And I think that kind of that classic old school kind of chorusy sound in the beginning it became such a strong part of the song. What I love about this song especially is how we used the bass, because this was a song where I suggested to you that I want to really take advantage of the bass synth, the mono bass synth, the pedal, and I wanted to kind of, because when I played around with it at home, I just noticed that with one of the settings that I got this fat kind of guitar-y sound in it.
I remember the first time you plugged it in, I was a bit skeptical.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of wild and unruly, in a kind of cool way when you started dialing it in a bit. But in the beginning, it's like a bit like a synth, but worse. And
yeah,
like it felt a bit weird. But then when it started like trying things out with it and dialing it in, it was kind of cool because it becomes its own thing because of the tracking of the pitch, and so it's very glitchy and it kind of like fits the vibe of the album.
It does. I love the way it's a bit uncontrollable, I also love the intervals in that song because they're more strange. I go from major to minor chords in a bit of a different way than usual, and then I just love Jim's solo. I think it's just amazing what he does in the solo.
Speaking of Jim's solos, I think Jim did his guitar solos from his own studio.
Yeah,
for the most part, and the solos he sent, they were never what I expected, but they were always really cool and surprising.
think the way that people relate to current events and relate to future events is like there's this kind of humorous nihilism which can be seen in the whole, you know, in the meme culture, but it can also be seen in how, even in art, you can even hear it in today's music. I think you can hear what kinds of sounds people are finding interesting and funny at these end of times, so to speak, because people have this end of times attitude about things. And I said from the beginning that I want to do an album which talks about those things, and it kind of looks at it, and it doesn't of course give any answers, because that art shouldn't give those answers. It should basically more add to the questioning of those things, you know, and open for new thoughts. But I wanted to kind of, you know, do that dialogue about where we are and the nihilism thing a bit. How about playing some Killing Time for us then? Yeah. One thing that I'm so happy about was that I said, if we use the synthesizers the wrong way, they just become, you know, typical like hard rock or heavy metal synthesizers. And that's nothing that I want to use, you know. I hate that stuff. For me, at least, I don't want to use that. I want us to pay tribute to the classic horror sounds of people like John Carpenter. And I think we really succeeded in that, you know.
Yeah, and that's something you talk about a lot, about the whole song like being inspired by 80s horror films, and that's kind of where we went with the sounds as well, and kind of playing with that, John Carpenter kind of sound.
Also on this track with the guitar sounds, I think we took a fresher approach to them than just making the basic modern hard rock or metal sounds with it, you know. And but what I think is so fun is what we did with the pre-chorus, because the pre-chorus in this song came about really late. We had written the pre-chorus, and I remember us building on it. I think we did like 3 or 4 completely different versions of the pre-chorus before we found this thing. And it was like the last night working on the song, we're like, we got to figure it out. And the way that we came back to the John Carpenter-ish synthesizers in that, and did it became so atmospheric and eerie, and it kind of builds up to this chorus where you kind of disconnect the synthesizers, but instead come in with the repetitive guitar harmonies. I think the structure became so interesting and so fun in that song. So this is the song that was the first song that I brought to the very first session that we had in the demo version. And we took this whole journey with this song, turning it from being kind of a classic, more like a hard rock song. We tested something that went more towards a country thing at some point. Making it a little bit, remember, like a little bit more acoustic.
Yeah, and also like a bit more REM at some point.
Yeah.
I think we even tried the mandolin.
We even tried the mandolin, yeah. But then we went for a more, I said, you know what, I want to make it, I want it to have this kind of synth wavy vibe about it. Because every time you brought those sounds in, I was like, that's the one I want to go chasing after, you know.
And I also think that when you played me the first demo, I think it was more, as you said, like a basic rock song, and but it had this like slightly gothic vibe
Yeah.
in a way, and I think that kind of maybe led us to where it's now.
I'm so grateful that it did. It brought us somewhere much more profound, in a sense, that where I had kind of experienced it myself before. This is a song that started out as an idea about one thing thematically, and then it became a completely different thing thematically for me. Or, I mean, the lyrics were the same, but the thoughts that then completed the lyrics. And this is also one of the songs where you and I have worked a bit together on the lyrics, because I had quite a few lines that you were like, should we look at those? And you were absolutely right about them. I'm so grateful that we did.
And I lost you too in time. I'm running on empty, searching for the
Like, we've really worked during this whole process with kind of letting the music speak to us and say what it wants to become. And I think that's something that I will cherish in my entire life, this super unique long project where we've lived with these songs for such a long time, and we've had all these days where we're just in different, I mean, there were even days where we started the day with a bit of meditation, just to tap into the openness of source material. And I think we've been very honest in allowing the right ideas to kind of take place in our minds and hearts while building on them. There's been very little of that, what do we want to do? And very much of that, what does this song have to become, And I love that. And I think
And it's taken us to some weird places.
really weird places. Something of an interlude on the album, and not a very typical track for me to write. And the whole track was born out of this practice that I did. Kind of, I started out writing
Like flow writing?
Flow writing, yeah. At some point, I started listening to what was around me, and I heard three things. I heard the tinnitus in my ears, which becomes really clear when it's pretty silent around you. I had the kitchen window open, and I heard this beautiful mix of traffic noise, just slight traffic noise, but not too much, mixed with, perhaps a couple of birds tweeting somewhere, some children playing, and this kind of ambience from that block where we live. And the third thing I heard was the clock. The clock ticking, the traffic ambience, and the tinnitus. They were this trio of sound worlds that I thought, let's combine this. So I thought, the tinnitus will be represented by the guitar, the traffic will be represented by the bass, and the drums will take care of the pulse, the clock, basically. And with these thoughts in mind, I went out on these small walkabout adventures where I recorded different traffic spaces in Helsinki and tried to get me into that right state. And I kind of came into these thoughts of in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, where the main character Raskolnikov walks around in St. Petersburg and has all these feverish thoughts. He's always in a fever, and he kills the lady, and then he lives with this, and the whole book is just in these fever sweats, and has these people coming over to his house while he lies in the couch and just has fevers, and I thought about this walking around in that sweaty Helsinki, with all these intersections, and I was like this kind of coming into this mindset, and that's where it gave birth to this idea of the Helsinki intersection mindfuck.
It's really raw and grungy. And also, when you talked about the traffic sounds that you recorded, those are actually the sounds that you can hear on the song as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, we used the same ones from your nightly adventures. And we also limited ourselves to just those recordings, so we didn't add anything extra.
I really love the drum track on that song. Both me and Simon had this era just before we started recording, where we somehow both of us started listening to the Oasis album, What's the Story, Morning Glory, which has been very criticized for its sounds. But I found something there after all these years, and I listened to their drumming, and I went back to all Beatles recordings and listened to people like Ringo Starr, and I was like, can we do that thing, Simon, on this album? Can we like just minimalize everything? Because Simon usually also likes to play in a minimalist sense, you know. He has small drum set, and I love that, you know, like it's a different thing to have like 48 fucking tom-toms, and you know, like Simon just has the basic things there and just does his thing really, really great.
Turn the page. Look beyond the veil. She asked me to turn out the light. I turn out the light.
So, Sapiens. Quite a basic track, right?
Yeah, this is also a song that you've done before.
Yeah.
This was like a re-recording of an old song.
Yeah. Yeah, this was featured in our very first demo that we did with the band that was back then called Marco Luponero and the Loud Ones. I think we released it in 2019. And
Didn't you have different people playing it?
yeah, it was just me and Lasse Vesala, who owned the studio. So he's not even a drummer. So it's really it's a very primitive version. But it was
I like the old version as well.
it's really nice. It's really nice, and I definitely like that version as well. But we always thought, because this had become quite something of a live favorite to play for us, and both Simon and Jim were like, we need to do a new recording of Sapiens with this lineup at some point. And I was like, you know what? I think the time is now, because otherwise it's going to be too long. It didn't really, maybe, well, thematically, it concerns human beings, and you know, like the stupidity of mankind, which is always a current theme, and it can also be like incorporated in this theme of nihilism in the end of days. But for me, it's always like that song when it comes. It's like, this is the old song. But I love what we did with it. This was one of those songs where we really allowed Jim to just build those guitar tracks for himself, and he just, you know.
Yeah, I didn't do much on this song. I recorded the drums.
Yeah.
And we
did
recorded the bass,
yeah,
vocals, of course, and Jim did all the guitars. And
yeah.
I sent them over.
Yeah, and it was awesome when he sent the material over. And it just, you know, this is textbook. Simplified rock and roll stuff, you know. There's nothing unnecessary on that song. But we have that theme down, the down, which is kind of a Western kind of thing, and I think it's inspired by bands like DAD. You know, it has the DAD flair. I've always loved DAD, and that was probably in my head when I wrote that song. It's so long since I wrote it that I don't even remember. But that theme, in a very nice way, kind of connects to the post-punky, you know, a bit of that, you know, maybe perhaps even gothic, you know, vibe on some songs, like just in a slight bit, you know, even though the song is not at all like that, you know, but it has some flair in that guitar theme, maybe.
Perché ritorno da te, la mia canzone ti dice che il fiume del giorno per me è troppo basso.
The night when you left us, I knelt by your side, crying my heart.
When you showed me the demo of this song, from the first note I knew that this song was going to be on the album, because it felt so so personal, and like in a way that maybe the other songs at the point weren't. I mean, they were probably all personal to you, but this was like another level. You could tell that it was like really important, and that you really had some thoughts that you had been having for a long time, and it just felt so honest.
I really loved the whole process of making that song. It was super emotional for me, the process, and it's on a very personal level, like my whole history with my father. We were in Italy to visit my father because he was old and weak, and on the third night we're supposed to meet up for dinner, and he's come there like 15 minutes in advance and sat down, got a heart attack, and died. So when I came there a little bit before my family. He still laid there on the floor with his eyes open. And this whole night was this absurd kind of experience for me when I had to kind of communicate. In my weak Italian, I had to communicate with them and go with them to the morgue and stuff like that and get his things. And after that night began this phase of grieving, but in a very strange way, because my father was a very special person. He didn't really, care so much about anyone, and so it became the kind of some sort of weird vacuum that I had to live with, and this I told you about all these things, and I started writing the song, and it was so beautiful, the process, and we had all kinds of days where we went through this, and I didn't think I could sing it. This song became a healing factor for me, for my relationship with my father, and my relationship with that grief, and with that anger. I kind of feel as if it took me home in a way, and it was like the most magical process ever. And I don't know if people will hear that in the song, but basically I don't care, because for me it's done its job already, which is it healed me. And I think I couldn't wish for anything more of a song.
Yeah, and that's the power of creating, and letting you go through the processing those thoughts, and going through the whole emotional journey, like you said. And it's so cool that you could actually kind of complete the journey and find peace with it as well.
Greater than your wife, it's greater than your lover, and it's greater than your life. It's almost supernatural, it changes everything. It gives you the power and it makes you the king. Look at that, guys, I just dropped a young lad.
I really loved doing it, and felt that was one of the songs that had pretty much its basis was found quite early on in the process, I think.
Yeah, the basic arrangement was just like the drums and bass and guitar.
Yeah.
And then we also came up with this kind of synthy collage thing that we did for the song, which I thought was really fun to do.
It was awesome.
Just like recording different synths. I had a small stack of synthesizers in the studio, and just like recording them, cutting up the audio files, and kind of creating like a jigsaw puzzle in a way, and just finding different kinds of grooves for the song.
And you can really hear them especially on the pre-choruses, right? That's where you can really hear some of the percussive stuff and things that just stuck in. It was awesome.
Turn the key to the heart. I'll sweep you off your feet with my Medusan arms. Baby, bring it to your knees.
We've been inspired by so many. Well, we have our different areas, but there's so much music that we both love, and so much we've listened to so much music during this year. Like so many sessions have started with us, like drinking our morning coffees and you know what, I heard this. It might be new music that we heard during the weekend or whatever, or it might be a lot of the classics. Like put on Michael Jackson now for a second there, or put on this and that, and like
Yeah, well,
hundreds of records that we just, listened to and been inspired by. You've introduced me to so much music that I wouldn't have listened to. And I think I've introduced you to music too, that you necessarily wouldn't have like kind of, started listening to. And
yeah, and also like re-listen to lots of albums that I have listened to a lot in the past.
I
but
kind of
haven't-
forgot about
Yeah,
yeah.
and haven't like some of the Nirvana albums that we listened to and then like heard in years, and lots of those kinds of albums that I listened to as a teenager, and like have just kind of somehow gotten left behind.
Some people take the sun with them everywhere they go. They greet their lives with gratitude each day.
I so much appreciate our recording and mixing process of The Burden, because it's such a, this was a very organic production in many ways, and also it's a very classic kind of approach to sound, with the choice of instruments. I love what we did with the drums on this track. I love the drums on The Burden. I love the Beatles feel of the song. But what was very present also on The Burden was inspiration from sounds like Aerosmith did in the early 90s, late 80s, and especially what they did with the record that was really in when I was in junior high, which was Get a Grip, because they did this trio of ballads, the amazing, Crying and Crazy, and especially amazing with the orchestration. That was something that I wanted to kind of find a bit also in The Burden. We really found some great solutions for the orchestration with the help of my friend Robert, who came by and did some tremendous work. So we used the Abbey Road package on that song.
Yeah, the Abbey Road 2 from
The Abbey Road
Fine.
2, yeah.
Yeah, that's the smaller section.
Yeah.
That's like most of the strings, and maybe some bigger sections like in the background, some parts, but yeah, no real strings.
And I think Robert did really awesome, and you too. You did some awesome stuff with them. They sound really great. And then Jim comes in with a really classic, really classic Joe Perry style solo. I think love the solo there.
Yeah, and I loved how roomy the guitar tone was when he
Yes.
passed this to us, and
Yeah.
I think we just made it maybe even a bit more roomy,
Yeah.
but it's basically sounds kind of like how we sent it.
Time to roll the dice. Carry on, 'cause no matter what comes along, life shines in your eyes. They say we're running out of time, but I've always felt eternal by your side.
The end, what a song! It feels like the perfect ending for this album. I think it really grows into something larger than life in a way,
Yeah.
and then it ties up the album nicely in a way, and also with the themes of nihilism and kind of closing the circle of the from where it started in the beginning with Everything Nothing.
I think the first idea I had for it was it was like a drinking song. Remember, like a pub song, like la 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 la. We tried make it. I had made some kind of really punky demos. We did some punky demos of it, and we kind of, I don't remember how it took us where it took us, but I'm so happy that it did, because it gave birth to this song where I kind of feel, from my point of view, it's a nice tribute also to acts that I'm so inspired by. Again, you have your classic kind of Beatles thing there, but you have a Queen, especially in Jim's wonderful, awesome solo. I think you really hear there's this really kind of Queen vibe in it, Brian May kind of vibe in the sound. It became this kind of weird carnival death fanfare, like the vision of, watching the whole world just burn down, and holding your loved one in their hand, and there's so many aspects of that song, when it's a song that is this close to yourself, it's hard to know what people will find in that song. But it's one of those songs that I think I have the feeling that people will find a lot of different things in that song. It depends very much on who you are, But it goes down with it like let's just have fun. And there is hope in the song. I think there's hope. It's nihilistic and kind of, it has the dark bye bye thing to it, but there's hope in it somehow, and it's a beautiful song. And I love the vocoder things that we did, because that's something that I don't do. I do very seldom. Like, I don't get those ideas. I don't even remember how we started coming into those ideas. But this kind of bravery in this process, and so many adventures that you brought me on, like, should we try this? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And that's why it's so different of an album, like, compared to what I've done before.